homosexuality, kind of, again, I'm not saying it's bad, okay? I'm saying that it does go against the laws of creation, as in you would need to have a man and a woman in order to create new life.
I don't think that God had sex with all of the animals on earth to produce the first animals. I think he just materialized them. I think that God materializes all kinds of organic matter in the mythology of your origin story.
Since Tyler's view is that gay couples pairing up is in opposition to the law of nature about procreation, a sterile heterosexual couple also fits that problem as well. Is the church have opposition to two sterile people of opposite genders?
Right.
Getting married and being in a relationship? Do they have a problem with that? Because I've never heard about that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching. Most of the content on my channel is supported by generous patrons, but made available for free to the entire world. If you support that, please consider adding your support at patreon.com/atheistdebates. This clip, however, is from one of the many programs that I do on YouTube on The Line. And if you liked it, feel free to visit, like, subscribe, and watch The Line Network live. Thank you.
Tyler's calling from Georgia. Tyler's a theist who also says that God is okay with homosexuality and that gay people will go to heaven, wants to build a case for God's nature. There's a lot to unpack in one little sentence there, but hey, Tyler, how are you? And which God are we talking about?
Hey, guys. Pleasure to be on the show, by the way.
I can't hear you.
And
your volume is really low.
Is it?
Yeah, that's definitely a caller side issue. He's hitting our audio mixer. There we go.
That's a little better.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay,
much better.
Now we hear you. What's up?
Okay. All right. Yeah, so the God that I'm talking about would be, I would say, the traditional Christian, well, not traditional, I guess. I happen to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And
so
you're Mormon. I will shut up now.
One of my boys.
Yeah.
All right,
Hey,
Tyler. I'm from
so the Mormon
Sandy,
God's
Utah.
okay with gay people, but really didn't like black people for a long time. But go ahead. I will stay out of this one.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. No,
Tyler,
I totally understand that. Yeah.
Tyler, I am stoked to hear about how our Mormon God is cool with gay people and how they're going to get into heaven. I'm stoked to hear about it.
Oh, yeah.
Witness to me and bear your testimony, brother.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sure if you guys are familiar with Mormon theology and things of that nature, you've heard about the three kingdoms in heaven, so to speak.
Yep.
There's the celestial, terrestrial, and telestial.
Correct.
One of the cool things I really like about that kind of theology is essentially each kingdom of heaven is in heaven. Okay, it constitutes as heaven, and we believe that most people are, with like a small exception of few, most people like on the planet are going to go to heaven. Whether that's one of the three kingdoms.
Hold on, really, just for the sake of brevity, Tyler. Sorry to interrupt, but just for the sake of brevity, this is. It sounds like this is going to lead to you saying that queer people are going to be granted access into one of the lower tiers of heaven, but they will be in heaven nonetheless. Is that is that the place that you're leading us to?
Sure. I mean, I have a little disagreement with like the framing it in a way of like a lower tier, so to speak.
Why do you have a disagreement with
so it's the way I like to think, or the way I believe the tiers of the kingdom are essentially are going to be more of God loves us, okay, and He wants us to like heaven is supposed to be this place of like unimaginable glory and joy and all that kind of stuff. So what He's going to do is here on earth, we are essentially trying to seek out truth, and we are living to things that we believe are true and the things we're comfortable with and all that kind of stuff. And God, there's a law for each of the kingdoms. So there's a celestial law, there's a terrestrial law, and there's a celestial law. Now, if I'm someone who has essentially is like, hey, being gay is something that I'm comfortable with and love and think is good and all this other kind of stuff, right? Then God is going to want me to go to a kingdom in heaven where that law is, that you can live to that law, if that makes sense. Whereas he wouldn't want me to go to a kingdom where like the celestial law, right?
He doesn't want me to go to the celestial with all the bigots. He doesn't want me to go to bigot heaven.
Call them. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it bigot heaven.
I would.
We're taught.
I would.
Okay. I mean,
so there's you're saying that there's one place that everyone can go where people are cool with gay people, where people are nice to gay people and don't think that there's anything wrong with being gay. But there's another place where people understand that it's bad to be gay, and God wouldn't want the gay people to go where all the people think it's bad to be gay. He wouldn't want them to go to bigot heaven, right?
Well, I wouldn't say we believe it's bad to be gay. Is what?
Well, then why the separation? Why the tiers? Why is there a tier for people who believe that it's a sin to be gay and a tier for people who believe that it's not a sin to be gay? Why the separation?
I believe it's simply, I guess, let's say let's zoom out just real quick, where we have the goal in general is our Father in heaven, God, is essentially wanting us. He wants to have us become like him. There's scriptures in Matthew where it's like, be perfect even as your Father in heaven is perfect, right? And so our goal is to become like God, to have a full understanding of all things, to be able to participate in creation.
You. We're gonna be gods, and we're gonna create. We're gonna have our own planets. Yep.
Right. And so when we're thinking of that thing, like we'll say specifically with homosexuality, right? Homosexuality, kind of, again, I'm not saying it's bad, okay? I'm saying that it does go against the laws of creation, as in you would need to have a man and a woman in order to create new life, if that makes sense. So it's more of, if that's the kind of law you want to live by, right?
And that still works that still works for gods. Like, gods aren't able to create life without having sex. Gods aren't able to create life without putting a sperm in an egg and having like a romantic relationship with, because like queer people on Earth have figured out how to have kids, through things like fertilization and like IVF and things like that, like where like they can get a surrogate
person.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
So why would queer people in the afterlife not be able to do that, if indeed that is how gods need to create things? First of all, I don't believe that your doctrine does actually support the. Sorry, Matt, I'll get let you jump in here really quick. But I don't believe that your God actually does support the idea that, and your doctrine does support the idea that that creation by gods requires sex. I don't think that God had sex with all of the animals on Earth to produce the first animals. I think he just materialized them. I think that God materializes all kinds of organic matter in the mythology of your origin story. And it doesn't, creation from a God's perspective does not require biological reproduction through the act of sex. But second of all, even on Earth in this temporal existence, queer people have figured out a way to reproduce and have sex. We have science that can help them out with that. Why would they not be able to do that in the afterlife? Why does that go counter to
I would suggest the science you're talking about is another woman, right? A surrogate.
Yeah, sure. That you need an egg and a sperm, an egg and an egg to be fertilized.
Right.
Yeah,
and
but why would
I'm saying that's following the laws of like the celestial kingdom, so to speak.
Right, but why what I'm saying is, why is that a law? That because a god doesn't need to have sex in order to create something. A god can create a galaxy just with the snap of a finger. A god has infinite power, and why would a god need to have sex to create something? Does a god need to have sex with a cat to create a cat? Does a god need to have sex with a tree to create a tree?
No.
Right. So why is creation dictated by you must be in a heterosexual romantic relationship with someone who has the inverse sexual organs of you in order to have the powers of a god and have the powers of godlike creation? Why would that be the case?
So I haven't thought necessarily extensively on this, but just just briefly, my underdeveloped thoughts here would be, I can't remember which section in the Doctrine and Covenants it mentions this. I think it might be 93. That's a guess, but it says that a soul is body and spirit, and in terms of the spirit, we are like spirits, like human, like basically the children of God can only be created through, I guess we could suggest, sex, so to speak, right? Because and because we are the same material as God, just children.
How did Mary get pregnant with Jesus?
I believe it says something about the Spirit
doing the hibbity dibbity with her, getting down and getting nasty.
I wouldn't necessarily suggest that. Just as a surrogate, like you kind of like insert it there into the egg or whatever. Like I'm sure it is along those same lines.
What? That's against the law of creation, Tyler. You can't just go in there and insert a sperm into an egg. You gotta get in there and do the work. You gotta pump and dump, dude. Okay. That's what you just said, right? That like there was a gospel from the early 90s that said that in order for human beings to be created, they gotta get down to it, and they better not do it outside of wedlock. And I'm pretty sure Mary wasn't married to the Holy Spirit when the Holy Spirit came in and dumped a load in her. But I also don't think that that's how it's described in the Bible, right? You just said that there was an egg that was placed inside of, or a sperm that was placed inside of her egg. And I'm just thinking like we're not lining up here. You know what I'm saying? Like it should be okay for people to get pregnant all different manner of ways if that's how the mother of the Lord was impregnated, right?
I mean, I'd say that I think that I don't know. I would say, like, again, this isn't something I've thought too extensively about, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that,
it's okay.
My thoughts,
that's what the show's here
are
for.
Like, this is exactly how it is or anything. Although you do seem to, your tone and your words suggest that, this is a matter of fact or something, and these are my firm beliefs or something. You asked me a question very on the fringe of what we're,
I know.
Like theologically speaking about, we're talking about gay people and then being able to go to like heaven and things like that,
right. And but the reason why you said that they're not allowed, right, Tyler, hold on, Tyler, hold on, Tyler, hold on. You
gotta calm down there,
Tyler, hold on. No, well, you gotta calm down and stop talking over me, buddy. Talking. Yeah, Tyler, the reason why I'm asking you the questions I'm asking you is because I used to be a member of your church, and I'm very, very well versed in the doctrines of your church and in the tenets of your church. I was a true believing member. I was raised in it my entire life. And so I'm asking you questions that I don't think you've asked. So I was asking you, why are gay people not allowed to be in the highest tier? And you said, well, we shouldn't think about it in terms of ranking, although it is in terms of ranking. You're being intellectually dishonest there. There is the highest one, the one in order for us to become like God, as you said. Hold on, Tyler, I'm not done. We need to be in the celestial tier. Tyler, hold on. We need to be in the celestial tier in order to become like God, which means that is the highest one that we can achieve. But we can't be there unless we are willing to abide by the rules of creation, which means a man and a woman need to make a baby. I pointed out to you that queer people here on Earth are able to make babies all the time without being in committed, monogamous, heterosexual relationships with each other, and pointed out, that the literal creation of, the impregnation of Mary, the mother of Jesus, was not done by a physical person having sex with her after they were married and well, Tyler, I'm just asking you questions because if you're still there,
pissed.
I'm sorry that we didn't get.
Pissed. There were 2 fucking callers left, and we were discussing whether or not we were going to get to either of those callers, because I have questions for Tyler, and Tyler ran away. See, my questions are, since Tyler's view is that gay couples pairing up is in opposition to the law of nature about procreation, a sterile heterosexual couple also fits that problem as well. Is the church have opposition to two sterile people of opposite genders,
right,
getting married and being in a relationship? Do they have a problem with that? Because I've never heard about that. Now, there is stuff in the Bible about, if you have wounded stones, don't let them enter into the temple. So maybe they took that and ran with it. But I'm pretty sure the church, while they encourage people to have kids, isn't going to oust someone for merely being sterile. And by the way, I'm talking medically sterile. Like, I don't know, you had your balls cut off, you had your ovaries removed due to ovarian cancer, whatever. Are those marriages null and void? Why is one pairing that can't produce life condemned while the other one isn't? Does the Mormon church discipline homosexuals? Because I seem to recall hearing about church discipline related to homosexual activities. Do they live in a different status under the church than heterosexual couples? I think the answer is yes. And why not do they get to go to the best tier of heaven? Because, Tyler, I don't believe any of this is true, and you haven't spent one second trying to argue that it's true. You're just telling me what you believe and how your beliefs might be slightly different from the church. But why are there different tiers of heaven in the first place? What is this? And by the way, isn't Mormon heaven you get your own universe? Why would I care if I'm in a different universe than the bigots that didn't like me in the first fucking place? Ooh, it's not as fancy of a universe. Well, okay, I'll take it. But then you talk about this being about the soul. You haven't proved that there is a soul. Nobody's proved that there is a soul. And of all the things in religion that I am to varying degrees confident are false, the soul is the one that is most obviously, almost certainly false. Every single thing ever attributed to a soul is either an identifiable function of a brain or is not identifiably real at all. And so the last question that I had for Tyler, please think about this, Tyler. Since you think that God magically placed an egg in Mary, if God had magically placed that egg in Joseph, could Joseph have delivered Jesus? I mean, if that's what God wanted, I think the answer would be yes.
I think so. But I also think, and I have to speak for Tyler here because he ran away, but I think Tyler admittedly said, well, these are a lot of things that I actually haven't spent much time thinking about. He said that on the call. And the thing is, Tyler, if you're still there, I know that. I know you haven't spent a lot of time thinking about these things. What you have spent time thinking about is, how can I rationalize how cruel my church has been throughout its history to my queer friends? You're probably a person who has queer friends, maybe even some queer family members, and you're trying to figure out, how can I rationalize the cruelty that my church has shown to my queer friends throughout my lifetime? How can I make that work with my belief system? And so you're coming up with Tyler's version of Mormon post-life theology, which says that there are different tiers, and there's a tier that's reserved just for gay people where it says, hey, if you go to this tier, it's just as good, it's a great place to go, and no one will be mean to you. Everyone will be cool with the fact that you're gay. And you don't like to think about the tiers as being ranked because that seems bad. That seems like God is saying that the gay tier is lower than the heterosexual tier. But then when I get you to go down the road of it, you have to admit, well, in order to become a god and in order to have your own universe, as Matt said, you have to be in that highest tier. You have to be in the celestial tier, which means they are ranked in order of significance and in preferential order from God. But these are things that Tyler admittedly said he hadn't spent much time thinking about. And I know that. That's what this show is for, Tyler. That's why I was asking the questions that I was asking. And I hope you'll continue thinking about this, and not just in a way where you're trying to justify your church's bigotry toward your queer friends and potentially queer family members, and instead actually thinking about, does any of this make sense to begin with? does any of this actually make any fucking sense? Does it actually make sense that in order to get into the highest tier, in order to become a god, I need to be heterosexual so that I can pump and dump and make spirit babies with spirit wives? Does that make sense? And like, if you are the creator of all life in your personal universe, are you fucking to create all of that life? And the answer is no, you're not. But, you know, that's why I was asking you those questions, Tyler. And I know that those questions are really, really scary for a Mormon like you, but I hope you get there, bud.
Yeah. Tyler is a better person than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would permissibly create or instruct. But that's not going to continue to be the case, Tyler, if you keep trying to defend a homophobic, transphobic hate group that actively works to oppose secular laws, the laws of this nation and others that support homosexuality. As long as the Mormon Church continues to oppose those, if the Mormon Church wants to be full of bigots and say that they get into the top tier of heaven, cool. I wish it weren't so, but I at least appreciate the freedom afforded you, a freedom of religion to be as hateful and bigoted and ignorant as you want, provided you are not actively hurting other people. But the Mormon Church crosses that line, as do many Christian churches, by standing up in opposition to secular support for legalizing and advocating for the normality and permissibility of homosexuality and transness. And like the Catholic Church opposes in condoms in AIDS-ravaged Africa because of their position on homosexuality. The Mormon Church does similar things. And so what you're being handed at the temple is a shit sandwich that someone has tried to cover in chocolate syrup. And all you're doing is calling in to say how much you like the chocolate syrup, and you don't think the secret ingredient is actually shit, when it is.
Hi, if you enjoyed that content, you can watch this program and a number of others on the Line Network right here on YouTube. Link below.